Yo, yo, yo. Oh, hold on a second. Cool. Hey, guys. Awesome. So, this could very well be the most boring live stream you've ever been on because I'm mostly hacking on the GCC system and I am trying to get, well, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm doing, but I need the live stream to be active and the chats to do essentially this piece. So we've taken. Oh yeah. Well, what I mean by hacking, uh, the way I commonly use this word is it's me like tinkering or like doing a deep dive on hackathon. It's like a hackathon. So I don't mean like to actually hack other people because I don't do that anymore. And so, yeah, generally I don't. I'm just talking about making stuff better. Unless somebody makes me really, really, really angry, which is pretty rare. It's really hard to do that. But some people have accomplished it, and then certain things happen. But what I'm hacking on right now is I'm we've gotten to the point to where we have this new chat thing set up. As I was mentioning, I don't know that I can rely on other systems to do some of this stuff. And I'm also starting to see that a lot of stuff that exists with the AI companies today is really simple to build. And so I'm just going to start building this stuff. And I'm going to try to open source everything that I can or open binary it or something. I'm not sure. And again, the only reason why I am hesitant to share the source code is I just don't want people to insert malicious ops and bad stuff in it and then try to pretend like they're me because I know that we're building a lot of trust here and I don't want that to be abused by the not good hackers. But what's becoming pretty obvious to me is a lot of the stuff that are like the AI wrappers for the language models and things are actually pretty easy to build. And so I'm going to just start building them and try to do them sort of the right way. And I'm already doing it. So for the VODs and things, I have the basic framework now to where the AIs can do the auto segmenting as soon as the live stream finishes. And I just whipped up today the system that can do the auto clips. And it does the clips, the shorter ones, the last two that I just posted. Those are both from my AI system, not from Opus Clips. And I think that it's doing potentially an even better job than they've been doing. Uh, so what I think I'm going to start doing is just start chipping away at building all these various things and componentizing them and just start dropping them in this open source space. So all of you guys can pick it up and then you can use the components kind of however you want. Uh, I will be honest, Claude is kind of driving me crazy today because it keeps doing dumb engineering things, and I sort of lost my cool a little bit, which again is pretty hard to do. But I've literally told it to stop coding like a junior engineer and embedding literals and constants in the code, and it's still happening. We even did 2 full passes of the entire code, and it said everything's fixed, and I'm still seeing embedded literals, right? And this is a major faux pas because you want these things to be able to be localized, and you want the system to be super flexible. And when you embed these things, then kind of the only way to fix them, if you're deploying binaries, right, rather than just scripted code, is you have to rebuild the code. And that's not going to work, especially if I'm deploying binaries, right? So anyway, if I seem a little short or frustrated, it's because Claude is making me want to unalive it today with some of this craziness. That being said, I think we're very close now to having the automatic unified chat that will work across essentially all the channels. And so what I'm going to do for this stream is, and again, this may be super boring, so you may want to either put me in the background or mute me or just do something more fun. But if you want to see me collab code, then that's principally what I'm going to do here. And I kind of need it to be live because we've gone as far as we can go offline, and I need all the stuff to be here because at least for the first pass, what we're going to do is we're going to read directly from the browser streams since they lock down these APIs under various paywalls. But I can just scrub the content directly from the windows. So I don't need to go through the APIs. And also, if I'm going to open source this, I don't want you guys to have to pay these outrageous API fees for these companies that are basically just trying to milk us for insane amounts of money when it's simple enough to just scrub the content directly, right? I'm essentially reverse farming them. They've been farming us for all of our content. I'm going to start reverse farming them for all of their content. So that's basically what we're going to be hacking on for this session. And I'm probably not going to shut this live stream down until it's working. It could take an hour. It could take 10 hours. I want to get this done today. So it might be a little bit strange because I might just be hacking away with the various things I'm doing with Claude to get things leveled up. Let me actually drop a message on our Discord. But already, now that I'm talking to you guys, I'm already feeling better because I have actual humans that aren't insanely dumb AIs that you tell them the thing a gazillion times and they still get it wrong. It's like stochastic AIs are so great in many ways, but holy hell, when you need determinism and you need it to do something deterministically, it's like, it's challenging. It can test even like the Buddhist monk's patience, I think. So give me a second here. So I'll just show you what I just dropped. On our Discord. So one, how much is the cost per vault video on average? Yeah, no doubt, Tom. Yeah, absolutely. For serious. Good call. So one, as far as actually, I think I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, which is probably why I sound a little bit off. But still, good advice, Tom. So one, as far as the cost, are you talking about like the tokens that it's burning through? I haven't done a deep analysis on it, but uh, let me give you a timetable. Is for the live streams that I'm doing, which usually range between 1 to 3 hours, I can do the first processing on the pretty high quality content, which is I can't upgrade to 4K yet because it kills a lot of the social media sites, so I have to be just at HD. But it still creates files on the size of like, let's say, 5 to 30 gigabytes per full live stream. And then from that, at least with my box, which has two RTX something or other GPUs in it, and it has, I think it's like 16, 32 cores, 128 gigs of DDR5 RAM. I can get the system to do the first splitting of that VOD within 30 minutes, doing the full 2 to 4 hour live stream. Takes maybe about 30 minutes. And that includes cutting it up into all the different segments. And usually the segments will be, let's say, 3 to 10 segments, which are the length in time is probably 10 to 90 minutes. And then the clip builder can take any one of those full stream to shortened segments, and it can generate 5 to 15 clips in approximately 5 minutes, something like that. It's actually significantly faster than Opus clips. I'm not sure exactly why that is, because I'm doing full transcripts as well. Like the transcripts are all there, and the transcripts are pretty much on point. So I'm not sure why. I The only thing that I can think of that's like obviously apparent to me on why doing this locally is so much faster than when I do it like on Opus Clips or the other video editing systems is the server compute that they allocate to you is significantly underpowered. That they're, and this kind of makes sense, is they're doing it in perhaps the most cost-effective way for them, but the downside of that is the temporal window. So for example, let me just give you one quick data point. I just posted this new clip on two. I did one on the LLM psychosis, and then I did one on the AI valuation hype. For Opus Clips to transform that VOD from widescreen and whatever the source material is to its 9:16 portrait mode with no clips, just the transformation and to add the text overlay, this takes on average about like maybe 10 minutes to do this. The generation of those clips when I do this locally from the original source to create the actual clip itself takes me about like 30 seconds. And that's a significantly harder task. So I'm starting to get a sense of just how kind of effed up a lot of these AI companies are in terms of what they're offering and the speed at which they offer these things. That it seems, at least based on my setup, and I realize my setup is probably like, right, my rig is, it's a bit insane. But I suspect that most of you have at least 1/10 of what I have, right? Because that probably gets you to the low-end PCs or low-end laptops. It would still be faster for you guys to do a lot of this stuff locally than to do it on the servers. And yeah, and what I really want to try to do is shift a lot of the AI and technology work away from big tech's cloud, because ultimately this is their end game. It's the cloud infra that they've spent trillions of dollars on, literally trillions. It's the T now, it's not a B. And they're massively overcharging everybody for this. Massively. This is basically the only way that they make money. This is why they're so dead set against SLMs. This is why they love things like Kubernetes, because it empowers the cloud stuff. And the last thing that they want is for you to do things on your local compute, even though your local compute is fully capable, in many cases, better than what they're allocating for you, unless you're paying like premium dollars, right? You're on AWS and you're getting like 10 RTX, whatever state of the art type of thing. So anyway, what I'm starting to get into is basically starting to build these individual components for basically anything that I do, and creating these programs, these components that will do the stuff for you. So then everybody has this stuff and it can run locally, and you don't need to pay like Opus Clips $50 a month or whatever to do something that you can do locally with a small amount of code that's written the right way. And it's not just them. Like Restream, for example, which I love, it's great. It allows me to broadcast. They limit the number of channels that I can broadcast to 5 unless you upgrade to their business version. But check this out. Their business version versus the pro version, I think the jump in price goes from $20 a month to $200 a month just by adding one more channel. So right now I'm maxed at 5 channels, and this is a Ponzi scheme, man. Like, I love Restream. I had no idea that there was going to be a jump, like, to add one additional channel. Like, I just want to add X to it, or I want to add the Goju Trek to it, and it's going to increase the price 10x. There's no, at least to the best of my knowledge, there's no add a single channel and pay for the additional channel. There's just this huge jump. And it's similar, for example, like with, at least I think, with Claude right now, is there's this jump to the max, which is $200 a month, versus I think the less expensive version is maybe $100. Maybe it's less than that, but it's a huge jump to get into the unlocked mode. And I don't like these games. Whether I can afford it or not is not really the point. The point is that this is not a reasonable price range. It's not a linear progression. It's like an exponential or polynomial curve, and it's not logical. The cost for Restream to broadcast to a sixth channel should not increase the prices by 10x. It logically doesn't make sense. So I may just start rebuilding all this crap and make it available to all of us for free. Like, and this is why I've been saying that the real goal of GTT is to become the next Linux Foundation, except for AI, because I see the shift as very similar, right? Closed source world versus open source. That was the big movement with the Linux Foundation, and big tech did not want that to happen. They fought tooth and nail to shut down open source, and thank goodness they didn't win, because people have brains and they know that they're being kind of taken. And so they started giving their discretionary time to support open source. And when the people of the world are working together, even in small chunks, we can do incredible things. And so it's a very similar thing that's happening right now with cloud-based AI versus local-based AI. The last thing that big tech wants is for you to be able to do AI work locally, because that would cut them out. And that is the key. Like, you hear about all this data center stuff. That's the key revenue source for pretty much all of them, with the exception of maybe Google and Microsoft, who have other revenue streams. But even those are kind of like, everybody's moving to this cloud-based thing. And some of it makes sense, right? Like websites that are online, it makes sense to put that on the cloud. But when you have all this powerful compute locally, and I mean, some of this stuff is if it's done efficiently, it's so fast, you could literally do it on your phone's compute. Like, not a joke, right? With the diff implementation for inference, you could literally run the inference on your phone's computing hardware. You don't need any fancy GPUs or anything. It's mostly just hype manipulation to try to get you locked in, so then they can take money over and over and over and just make their checkbooks bigger. The good news is the AI competition is creating so much pressure universally across these companies that competition is actually fantastic, because it's going to force prices down. At the same time, while we work on building things that are local, it's going to drive it even further down. That we'll create the systems that will run as much as possible using very elegant and smart designs that are compartmentalized, small components that are really good at one very simple task, like your calculator, right? No bloatware, super trimmed down. And then when you compose them together, they can do very powerful things. But you shift the component based on the domain that you're working on. So for example, with me working with Claude, all I really need right now with GCC is I need expertise in the Go programming language. I need a reasonable knowledge of TUI. This is like the text user interface. And then I need reasonable knowledge of social media and how that works through various different inputs. That's it. I don't need support for, I do need a little support for Python and JSON. That's it. I don't need 15 languages. I don't need all of these other things that they come bundled with. And so you can trim that down significantly. And what that does is it effectively reduces the compute envelope by orders of magnitude. I mean, it's not cutting it down by like 2x. it's like 1,000x less compute intensive when you do it this way. And so the path forward is to build these, at least in my mind, it's becoming more and more clear, that you build these small little components and you make sure that the AIs are domain specific, and then you combine the right AIs with the right domain expertise together for the specific task that you're working on. Like, I don't need the AIs to speak Russian or Chinese or Mandarin, like all that stuff. I don't need it to understand poetry or most literature. I don't need to understand history. All these things that are basically built in that you're paying for that are not actually being used by you. And if you have the right AI orchestration, the system can, through natural language understanding of true semantic reasoning, it can determine the surface area of the components, so you essentially are covered, right? And it will be evolving as you do more work because you'll shift from this to this. So it won't be something that's like fixed or static, but this is just an orchestration problem. Once you have those, like the key thing really is small composable components. That's like the foundational principle. And this is actually how the internet works. This is how the Unix operating system was first built. This is how I built Nautica. This is how I think about machine programming. And I think this is like the way to do this stuff. Anyway, so that's a very long-winded rambling, but what we're going to do for this stream is basically have me hack on this. This may be super boring, so I won't be offended at all if you guys check out. Oh, Juan, are you telling me the prices for the restream? Yeah, I think that sounds right. Like, think about this for a second. 5 channels for $20 a month. Wouldn't it make sense that 5 more channels would be $40 a month? I mean, logically that makes sense to me. So, but what they're doing is, I mean, I've thought about this a little bit. My speculation is they are trying to hook, line, and sinker you. It's a land, expand, demand. Is they get the content creators that are starting out with a reasonable price. And then as the content creators grow, they reach a certain point to where it's like, okay, you actually have people that you're interacting with, and you know, you have got momentum. And so by the time that you're trying to add like a sixth channel, you probably are onto something. So there it becomes a feeding frenzy, right? It's like their own form of outlier detection in the pricing model. And I'm not a real fan of this because it's not an honest way to do business. They're not charging you for what is a reasonable price hike as they were before. And what they're doing is, it's not that hard. I mean, like, as I'm starting to dig into some of this stuff, it's really not that difficult. It's just that you have to have like some, I'm probably underestimating the difficulty because I've been doing this for so long. But from my perspective, like, it's really not that challenging. Like, for example, the way that this is all deeply integrated with the live streams is, well, I don't want to bash on OBS because I love OBS, but this system seems to have potentially more accuracy in its tracking of the real-time status of yeah, live connections than even OBS has. And this took me, I don't know, 30 minutes to whip up without me writing any of the code. It's just clearly being able to articulate what it is that you're doing. So anyway, what we're going to collab code on is this guy. And I have all the framework set up. And now what I need to do is get Claude to plug into this baby over the actual live channels. So I'm going to be doing this. You guys are welcome to stick around and watch me collab code away. Or you can bail, whatever you guys want to do. But I may be a little bit less interactive than I normally am, because I'm determined to get this thing working, since it seems that Restream is not able to figure out this very simple task. And so I'll just do it myself, my friends. Just friggin' all on our own. And right now this is going to bind directly to the browser instances, which is kind of dumb. But that's just a starting point. Once we get this working, then I'll try to figure out how to plug in through various other ways to either call APIs directly that are free, or scrub things, or automatically be connecting without actually having to have these windows open. So this is, as most of the things that I'm working on, I'm a firm believer of iterative refinement. This is basically, I think I'm on maybe step 5 of the overarching plan. And so by the time we finish this live stream, we should have this working. So I'm trying to bring TikTok up now as its own separate window. And how do I do this? Moderation settings? That's not right. What's this button do? Huh. It's like it was... I got this last time to pop out in its own... Oh, hold on. What if we... Basically, a lot of this is just, it's scaffolding building. It's integration stuff. There's no like technical novelty to this. So in theory, not to say that that is going to make it super easy. The devil is in the details, but it's something that likely can be done. And if only I could figure out how to pop out the chat like I had before. Hold on. What if I shrink this window down? All right. No. Connection is unstable. It's not unstable. So TikTok is saying that my connection is unstable. Let me show you guys my connection. I mean, maybe it is. But, I don't know, let's take a look. That seems... Well, I guess that's just speed. It still could be in and out, but that test is showing some goodness. The good news is I at least can see the chat on TikTok. So, all right, we'll just... Oh, wait, what's this button? No. If anybody knows how to pop out the chat, just the chat on TikTok, that would be, I would love that tip. We somehow figured out how to do it yesterday. Seems to be unclickable. All right, well, what we'll do is we'll move this guy over here momentarily. And the truth is, as long as I can just bring up these windows, at least for the time being, that should be sufficient for us to mine these guys. Pick the cherry drink. Oh, what am I drinking today? Oh, guys, I'm actually off the cherry. I'm okay. That's not true. I guess it is cherry, but it's black cherry. It's real good. I'm loving it. Okay, so let's start hacking on this. All right, we're gonna put this over here. We know that connection's good. Now let's go back to this guy. I wonder. Okay. All right, let's. Oh, so Poe is saying I'm a streamer and I pay like $100 per stream, meaning I'm streaming on, I think, rented my own server, underground stream. That's sweet, bro. Uh, I also have to pay like $50 a month for video bandwidth. Restream is cheap. Yeah, I think that for the initial fees, oh, Claude's asking how it's doing today. Yeah, you're bombing, bro. Big time. Okay. So Claude is chipping away at this now. And it's now hacking on OBS Studio. I would move this to my main screen, but I think that there's some somewhat confidential stuff over here, so I have to keep it off the main channel. But I did want to, I also kind of wanted to live stream this, just so those of you that may wonder what I mean about collab coding versus vibe coding could kind of see what I think the difference is that with vibe coding, at least I think the way that it's been presented through Kaparthi's like initial uh, definition or whatever, was that you basically are, I'll just put this over here. You're basically just all natural language and you're not looking at the code at all or really about the design. You're more just like build the thing with all the stuff. And the way that I do it is I am looking at the code And keep in mind, I'm trying to figure out how to do this so people that can't write code can do collab coding. And I'm starting to get the skills for the AI that I think could get us somewhat there. But I still think that there's going to be a little bit of need to understand kind of the basics of programming. And I don't think it's going to be that hard because anybody that can read and write in natural language has enough advancement in written prose to then, I think, be able to generalize that to understand at least the high level concepts and idioms that exist in PL. Like, it doesn't all need to make perfect sense. And the truth is, natural language, it's completely, a lot of this is absolutely undefined. So you don't need to understand all the code. You just need to get a sense of what it means approximately. And I think that that is sufficient to look at the code and get a feel of like, this is not good code. Even if you don't understand exactly what the code is saying. And I'm saying this very much from my own real understanding. I'm not an expert in Go. I know almost nothing about Go. But I can kind of piece together a general intuition of what the Go code is doing, and then I can give guidance to the AIs on sort of what it's doing wrong. Anyway, okay. Let's see now. Okay. So the higher order bits of what Claude has discovered is the text itself from Restream embedded inside of OBS can't be read natively from other sources. So there's a few different paths on how we might be able to do this. The first path is it wants me to use like a WebSocket API, but this requires an external plugin, and I'm trying to minimize the extra dependencies. So anytime I can solve some of these problems without adding to more of my supply chain overhead, not only is it easier to use these systems, it's likely safer because I don't know all the details of this additional extension. I don't control that source, and I don't love that. If I can find another way to do this within my own source or your guys' own source, I think that that's generally the preferred route, simply for security, especially today when it seems as though people are having massive security holes in all kinds of things, as we've seen. So its first option I don't love. I'm going to the next one. Okay, so the next is it has some cookies that can be read, but they're encrypted. They're also not portable. Okay, let's continue to look at this. For your OBS uses Restream as an auth provider with 3 docked Restream panes, the OAuth token. And see, what's interesting about this is, like, it's come up with solutions, but I've already come up with solutions that it's not even suggesting. Like, for example, we have enough forward progress with computer vision that if we really want to, what we could do is we could take a screenshot of this and have it do image processing on the actual window if it can't read the text directly. And then through that uh, image analysis, it can lift the text and then drop it in. So where is this option, right? This is the kind of, as I was saying before, like the big thing is really critical thinking and problem solving, that the AIs are dumb. Like they're very much just a cookie cutter of here's sort of what exists, but they're not actually thinking outside the box. So they're not, they will present the space as like these are the only options, and it's not at all. There are numerous other options for almost all the problems. It's just doing stuff that is sort of memorized, and it's sort of like a regurgitation. Okay, so let's let me chat with it. Let's say 10 seconds. Let's say this is completely ad hoc-ish, but many of the solutions that actually exist for these things are very ad hoc-ish. For example, this is how the OCR stuff works for checks, right? It's a screenshot and then it tries to do the character recognition. So this is just like scene segmentation and that kind of thing. The only issue with this approach is if the streams are getting too much input, then the screenshots will have to happen in such sequence that it'll be really difficult for it to keep up. But I don't know that we really have that problem, at least not yet. So minimally, this is a potential workable solution. Yeah, the other thing, the part of this that doesn't even make sense to me is if I can select this text here and I can copy paste it, then this gives me an indication that it can be read directly from this window using the mechanisms that already exist in the operating system. So let's propose this. All right, let's have a chew on that. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. One. Let's. Yeah, that's probably true. One is I can kind of see the system in my head, and what I'm trying to figure out is how to break it down to the bare essentials that then other people can know about and learn, and then you have the smallest amount of required knowledge to then do the collab coding yourself. And I wonder if I can show an example so you guys can kind of see what I mean about this. One thing that's, I think, kind of nice about, yeah. So, by the way, I presented the solution of just doing the copy paste approach, and it seems to think that may be possible that there's something, no UIA patterns for the Chrome clipboard scrape it. Yeah, right. So now it's looking at the, okay, something just happened. Yeah, I think it is starting to take control of the screen to, whoops, I didn't want to do that. So we can try to do this copy paste idea that I just had. Notice too that initially when it came back with the solutions, it was certain that this wasn't possible. And oftentimes, like, you can't actually trust what they're saying. Is they, at least where we are today with the language models, they don't actually know. And so a lot of it is just memorization and regurgitation. So it's looking at the things that are the closest matches for a pattern and then presenting those as the only viable options. But this is where our own critical thinking comes to mind. Like, for example, all of us can see that I can select this text and, like, I can copy this. And then if I go to GCC, I can just take my window here, right? And then I can paste this. That worked. So that tells me that the functionality of copy paste in Windows is accessible through this pane, which means its initial conclusion about how it couldn't be done is just totally wrong. It's completely incorrect. But oftentimes the AIs will speak with a certain level of certainty that is very confusing and hard to realize that they are a bit clueless. So you have to be able to kind of read through the BS and look at it with the ability to critically reason. This is why the critical thinking part, I think, is so important for the future of the synergy with the AIs. I wish that the AIs would integrate something like a Bayesian network that could give you confidence scores about the things that it's talking about. So then you could see that it's saying, I'm saying this definitively, but that's not actually correct. I'm guessing, and I don't know how to properly use weak claims or qualify my claims. So I'm saying this as if I have 100% certainty, but the truth is I only have about 13% certainty on this. That would actually be significantly more helpful, because then most people could see that, oh, you don't actually know. Look at this. Look, look what we just did. Literally. And all this required was our ability to think outside of the box and re-guide its thinking. There's literally nothing magical here. Almost all the people that are on GDT know what copy paste is. And if you can just break these things down to the lowest common denominator and start there, then a lot of the hoopla and nonsense where it's talking about building an extension and all this other random stuff is sort of like mumbo jumbo nonsense. At least this is sort of the way I approach collab coding. Sometimes it does know, and this is maybe the hardest part, is being able to see through the BS to the cases where it does actually know what it's talking about and it's right, versus a lot of the time where it really has no idea and it's just fundamentally wrong. And I don't know exactly how to, like, right now it's just sort of based on my knowledge and the intuitions I have, but there's got to be a more formal way to write these kinds of things down, so then you can distinguish. Like, maybe what we'll do is we'll build some sort of Bayesian network that can do analysis on the things that it's saying and provide a confidence score with them, so then all of us know immediately where they sit in accuracy. I think doing this for code would be not that hard. And anything that is hard science or factual that can be verified is not going to be very challenging. And Bayesian networks are supremely good at this, right? Because they are keeping track of, essentially, if you think about all the data that they're trained on, they're keeping track of all of those segments. That's part of their original design. And it's been a while since I've looked deeply at the Bayesian stuff, so I might be getting this slightly wrong. But when they guess on things, they can give you that confidence score of, like, I think it's going to rain, but there's a 13% chance of that. And just having those tags, I think, would go a long way. So anyway, let's take, yeah, awesome, Shift. Yeah, happy to help out in any way I can. And this is learning for me as well. It's a lot of grayness and murkiness between the prior technology that we've used that is largely deterministic and this new stuff that is largely stochastic. It has incredible value in my mind, but it can be misused very easily. And keeping it on track, I think, is, at least from what I've seen, the hardest part. That it starts to go off in this direction, and once it starts going off on this, it really wants to go this way. And if you let it go too far off this path, then you end up in a spot that it's almost like, okay, throw all of that away and start again. And I'm not really interested in that. I'm principally interested in directional correctness. Like, we know we're moving in the right direction, and then we iteratively refine to slightly adjust to get more precisional accuracy as we get closer and closer to the target. This, I think, is a much better way to deal with these things. So the goal is, from the start, it's never to be perfectly correct, because what does that even mean? But instead, to know that the foundational principles of the thing that you're doing make sense. It's like a first principles approach. You're thinking through, like, what does this actually need to do at the bare minimum? And then once you have those down, you kind of burn those in as like the laws. And then you iteratively refine the approach to where it becomes tighter and tighter and tighter till eventually its chance for error is so small that it's acceptable. And I think that varies based on the type of thing that you're doing. Like, for example, if you think about automobiles and spaceships, automobiles don't need like 100% vacuum seal on the doors and things. You want it to be sealed up quite a bit, but generally it's like a sound thing, it's a comfort thing. It's not paramount to the survival of the people that are inside the vehicle. But on a spaceship, it is. Because the smallest amount of leak in these various panels that exist for the outside world could cause everybody inside the vehicle to be unalived. So the amount of precision that you need for the spaceship is 1,000x more than it is. So what I'm trying to say is, as you work on these various problems, like for example, in this chat window, if it doesn't get this exactly right and some messages are dropped, it's not going to be the end of the world. But if I'm building something where it ends up not going to the right site and instead goes to like a phishing site, that could be catastrophically bad, right? Same project, but slightly different problem space. Okay, it seems to be doing some stuff. Okay, so it basically is saying the every 5-second thing is, look at this. How long did this take? Also, just to drive this home a little bit more, this solution that we're coming up with in real time, it was not on the list of viable solutions. It said it cannot read this window, that it was impossible to read it. Clearly not impossible. Now, is it a little bit of an eyesore? It is. But the beauty of this is that now that this solution is sort of working-ish, we can just drop this back into OBS. We don't need it to be on the main screen because the chat is going to be here. So if it wants to highlight this and do wacky stuff, it really doesn't matter. I think the only thing that actually matters is that it can read from that pane. So let's try something now. I suspect that it hasn't done this. I could be wrong, though. Okay. Cool. Oh, yeah, I'm really bad about ignoring everybody. Yeah, so I see the confidence part. Yeah, traction point. Okay, cool. It's getting a little bit of this messed up. And ever since I docked it, it doesn't seem to like that. So I'm going to now need to fiddle with this because I think once it's docked, it's seen in a different way. But I think having it be docked is the better approach. So then it just stays over there, and this becomes the new form. So let's inform it about this. I do intentionally try to give it positive feedback, and let me explain why, just so it doesn't sound like I'm losing my mind. What's going on here? Okay. So part of the reason why I give it positive feedback, like I just did down here on "you're doing a good job," is I know that there's some sentiment analysis that the AIs are doing, which, if it reaches a point of too much negative sentiment, that it will cut you off. I've heard stories of this. I don't know if you guys have experienced this yourself, but I don't want that to happen. And sometimes I'm getting pretty frustrated, so I start to yell at it a little bit. And so when it is actually doing a good-ish job, I give it positive sentiment. So the way I think it works behind the scenes is it's essentially like one of these meters from 0 sentiment. This is basically you're burning major bridges with it, to 100% positive sentiment, which it absolutely loves you, you love it, everything's going great. At some point on this meter, I think if you get too low, then the AI will cut you off. I think it's dependent on the vendor. I think it depends on who the customer is, like if you're a paying user or not. But I'm fairly confident that this is built into the system, and we don't want it to cut us off, especially if we're trying to build stuff. So in moments when it is not totally botching things up, I will give it this praise, not because I've lost my mind and thinks that it understands this, is I'm trying to control the sentiment meter to keep it in that positive range so we don't get chopped. Okay, I need a short bio. I'll be back in 2-3 minutes. And I hope we're having fun. And one, yeah, I see your comment, and it's hacking on it. It might be that. No, I think that. Yeah, it's interesting because it is picking some stuff up, but we'll just let it keep cruising along, and I'll be right back. Yeah, okay. Okay. I see some stuff. We're getting some duplicates in here. And no, it's still working on it, so it's not done. While it's churning on some of this stuff, let me just, oops, wrong window. This is probably going to be one of the trickiest parts, is to get the interaction right, to where it's going to try to be asynchronously writing and updating. Oh, hold on. What are you doing, Paul? I'm going to share that my C++ Unreal project that I do completely 100%. We need to get this scroll. Hold on. Okay, so we're starting to run into some of those synchronous problems, mostly because it's doing some dumb stuff. And what I mean by that is it's what I think it's done is it's built a super dumb solution. And the solution is it is doing the copy paste from that pane, and then it's trying to inject it directly into the chat pane that we're seeing, and it shouldn't be doing that. Instead, what should happen is, and this is what I mean about like understanding the fundamentals of software design, is these are kind of like the gotchas that might be hard to reason about if you don't have some background in software engineering to build like real systems. So what it should be doing is it should have some sort of expected asynchrony between the process that is reading from the chat pane and the process that is going to update the chat pane. That these two systems need to function independently of each other. And when that's done properly, they will read, one of them will be producing into sort of the chat file, and the other one will be consuming it, and each one of them will, I mean, there's many ways to do this, but you basically want to make sure that they have some organization so they don't step on top of each other. It's critically important that this is done the right way because I'll be interacting with GCC, I suspect, while we're doing the live stream. And so I can't have it just arbitrarily taking over the pane from me or the window from me. So we need to correct this and give it some more design guidance because it's designing this sort of the wrong way. Let's try to course correct it now. Okay, so first we're going to move this back to the center so we can all see this again. Ish. Realize it's pretty small. Okay. Ooh, that's painful. Hold on. Oh, look at that. Got it back. Sweet. All right. Whew. So what it did is well, you guys probably saw that, is it came in and did selection of the text in GCC rather than from the pane itself. And I accidentally deleted the whole thing, but it has an undo buffer, so we got that coordinated. So it's all good. That was going to make me a little bit unhappy. This is why I have the full log system down here, so that anything that I send to it doesn't accidentally get sent to dev null. Or rather, if it does, I can just retrieve it. Okay, so let me kind of explain what I just asked it to do in case that wasn't clear. Oh, wait, hold on. I think I wanted to see one of the comments. Okay. It's making, because it's active with that chat pane, it's making it difficult to interact with that chat pane until it gets this new system working. So we'll just let it do its thing. Here we go. Now we're talking. Okay. We know that there's far more text in this, but it's slowly starting to figure itself out. Oh, yeah, so one thing I wanted to share that is making me more and more confident that these are the ways that we're probably going to have to start building these systems is, until big tech decides to kind of put its head back on, is many of these systems are creating these blackout zones. If you try to get access to their like deeper power without going through some API. And those APIs are, as you start to do more and more, are going to cost you significantly more money. The APIs are essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's a price wall. They're essentially trying to silo you into this specific form of communication, so then they can charge you all kinds of money. But what's interesting is, in many of these cases, you don't have to go through those APIs if you just, again, break it down to the bare minimum. Look at this. It's starting to get the actual text wrap now, which is great. Hold on a second. Let me... Okay. It's still not getting all the stuff, but it's still chewing on all this. The good news is it's built a synchronization system now. So it'll run this in the future as a separate process that runs alongside the main GCC system. And it'll use that, essentially this producer-consumer buffer that is stored as a written file as a means to communicate the information from the chat pane to GCC. Now this just to be clear, this may sound super fancy, but this is actually really simple. It's not nearly like let's see if it actually updates the chat pane like it's supposed to on restart. It's trying to figure it out. Okay. It's looking like it's having some trouble figuring out how to get these processes to run separately to communicate. And we're chipping away at this. By the way, doing IG and TikTok are going to be a breeze. Restream is the hardest piece because those two windows, it will just be able to scrape directly from the browser windows that I've launched. This one is much more challenging because it has to go through OBS and then find the specific thing within OBS and then do all of its stuff. And I'm doing that on purpose is I want to get the main channels mined first, and then once that's solved, we'll knock out these other two in a fraction of the time, because that'll just be a point to the Chrome browsers and then create separate buffers for each of those additional windows, store them in their own files, and then it will have a list of buffered files that it's going to kind of iterate through. Okay, look at this. Now this time, for the first time, is it remembered a little bit of the chat history, which means it has some semblance of the synchronized queue stored locally, which is great. We're starting to move in the right direction. Oh, I need to like anchor this. Okay. Anyway, back to what I was saying about the APIs is initially when I was, hold that thought, because I think it thinks it's stuck, or it thinks it's done and it's not done. Okay. Let me just test something. I want to see when I do a copy. Yeah, my copy grabs everything. I think. Hold on. Yeah. Sort of it. T-Lock, as far as the bill for GCC, with Claude, I'm on the max plan, so I'm token unlimited, at least right now, I believe. But the beauty is that what's great about, I think, this approach is once the code is generated, the code is going to behave deterministically and it's not going to require the interaction with the AI. So it's a one-off. Think of it as like a one-off, is that once we have the code, we don't need to rely on the AI for subsequent work. Yeah, it seems to be having some trouble with targeting the right window for the copy paste. Let me go back and try to course correct it here. Which is, oh, it, yeah, worst case, what we can do is we can actually build an independent extension ourselves that will be a plugin for OBS directly, and then that will piggyback off of Restream's chat within OBS and then right to the shared file. Now, I don't want to do that because, again, more dependencies and things that we're going to have to download and use, it becomes a bit too fragmented. We kind of want the system to be sort of unified, even if we have these individual components that are interacting with other processes and stuff. Worst case, if we really need to, we can drill down to the socket layer and we can essentially be reading from those sockets like the browsers are and Restream is, and pull directly from them. One way to think about sockets. Okay, let's see what it does. I just gave it some guidance on trying to make sure it actually gets the entire pane and its history. Okay, so clearly still not jiving. I think oh, yeah, so T-Lock's asking about if it has to remember what it did in the previous session. I mean, a little bit as I'm extending it, but as we're building these things, I'm teaching it about each component, and then what it stores is basically a summary of each of the individual components of GCC. So then when it rolls over its limit for the context window, it simply has to pull back in a very brief description of each of the modules within GCC, and then it's sort of brought up to speed. So as far as doing iterative refinement on the system itself, as we build the next component, it's something that's it's pretty lightweight. Now, it's not going to get all of the contextual history, but it can for any individual piece that it wants, because we're constantly updating the GitHub source with these labels that are built into the versioning of GCC. And that's done automatically in the system. And it does it based on every day that's passing. So this number here, this is a counter that it's incrementing. So basically, every day that passes is going to assign this new 0.0.0 number. And then for any particular thing that it's looking for, it can quickly look at the labels for the primary changes that were done for that day, and then get deeper context on just those pieces. So a bunch of like infrastructural things that are built into GCC so it can catch up in the smallest amount of work, the fewest number of tokens that are required, essentially. I haven't optimized this yet, so I'm sure there's still more that we can do to make it more efficient, but it's starting to get the basic infrastructure for building actual large-scale software development. Okay. So it's getting stuck. Let me see if I can unstuck itself. Yeah, and T-Lock, that's what I was kind of saying about how there's all these pieces that you don't have to know how to code. There's just certain principles that I need to try to distill down, that once you get the principles in place, then the system becomes very auto-maintainable, right? Like, for example, that versioning, you really need to have versioning built in from the beginning on almost all of your software engineering projects for a variety of reasons. It's more important now than maybe it's ever been. I don't know if you guys are getting flashes on my screen here, but that's this new process interfering with OBS. But those first principles, once you have those in place just directionally, they don't have to be perfect, then you can use them to kind of keep everything level, like that, the built-in versioning. So it's interfering with the pane system for OBS. Let me tell it to stop doing this. Okay. We can always just undock this pane, and I think that would make it significantly easier. But I don't want to do that just yet, because it's better if this pane is part of OBS rather than free-floating. Yeah, so T-Lock, going back to what you're saying about minimizing the token use, yeah, this is part of my strategy, is to figure out ways. A lot of that has to do with ensuring that the AIs have stored local context that they can pull into memory that is really concise and precise. And generally speaking, what I find is it doesn't need to have all the details about everything, because you'll be working on different things as you're collab coding. And so all that you need as a starting point is a short description, explanation of the key components. And then once you have that, as you launch the instance of Claude Code or whatever, you can direct it to the specific components that are going to be worked on for that session. And then you can minimize your token burn. So rather than restarting the collab coding experience where it rereads everything, which is just a waste of tokens, you can set it up so it won't pull anything directly into context unless you specify. So for me, because I'm unlimited tokens, I just have it pull everything into memory. It's still pretty concise because I just want it to be fast, but you can design it so it has essentially a hierarchy of components. And what it does is at startup, it reads through a manifest, right? The manifest is the list of all the key components that you're working on. And then of those, you essentially say, okay, for this session, we're going to work on this and this. So only read these things into memory, ignore all the rest of the stuff. And then if you need to do a deeper dive, then you can have a date-related label on your GitHub repo where all the work was being done or the key dates. And then it can principally look just at the diffs of that GitHub repo. So then it's also minimizing. So it's not ever really looking at the full repo. It's not looking at all the components. It's essentially as streamlined as possible. So not only will this reduce the token burn, it'll reduce the temporal window, essentially how long it takes to do this. This application so T-Lock's asking if the application is just local. You don't really have to worry about security. Yeah, that's sort of right-ish. The way I'm designing it, though, is it'll run in a compute independent way. So it will run on my phone, on my local system. I will build sort of a SaaS version that's just the APIs. So then I can plug it in to kind of whatever I want to. And when I get to that level, I'll have to have some built-in security on ensuring that the information that's being relayed through those APIs is secure from a sender or receiver that it trusts, all kinds of things like that. So yes, you're absolutely right that right now I don't have to worry too much about security stuff. There are some things that I think I'm already dealing with, but off the top of my head, since I'm distracted by the chat thing, I can't quite remember what some of those things are. I think some of them have to do with trying to think if there's any credentials. Yeah, I don't think that any of the credential stuff is stored in the system, but obviously if you did that, you'd want those files to be like encrypted, and yeah, the security layer is going to add significant complexity. And I'll need to think about exactly where those points would be if you started to make this like a distributed system. There's some major points, like obviously encryption in transit and encryption at rest. are two of the main things. So whenever you're communicating over any kind of socket, it's encrypted. And then whenever the sensitive data is at rest, so it's stored on the server locally, something like that, it's also encrypted, depending on like the sensitivity. Okay, let me go back to this guy and see what it's struggling with. Oh, interesting. Okay, so now it's starting to think outside the box, and it has another suggestion on how to do this, but it would require me to shut down OBS and restart it with this particular flag on. But I don't know that we need to go that far. Hold on, there's another idea it has, which I think could be interesting. And this part in the collab coding, I think, is really critical, is to help the AIs along with other ideas that it doesn't have in its first pass. One thing that I found is, again, it will speak with a certain level of definitiveness on the range of solutions, and almost always it's wrong about this. So whatever you do, don't take the first approach that it presents you or the list as sort of gospel, because it certainly isn't. And then as you start to work with it more, you'll be able to sort of massage out more solutions that it'll come up with organically, and you'll get deeper down the rabbit hole and further away from these sort of mundane, boring solutions that aren't going to really work for more complex problems, like the problem we're working on right now. So hold on, we're going to look at this comment real quick. Leader is asking, can we not take help of a childhood psychologist here for prompts and questions, or at least their techniques? Oh, yeah, leader, I'd love that. In fact, I think that would be beneficial not just for this live stream, but for potentially the Discord. This is a good time to actually drop the Discord link into these chats. Let me quickly grab it as I re-guide the system. So what we know now is minimally this approach of copy pasting from the chat will work-ish, but when it's an embedded pane into OPS, it really struggles. But there's a bunch of other things that we can still try without going through a direct API read. And my hesitance of doing direct API reads is we become beholden to the supplier of that API. It could be a trap, essentially, because once you go through those APIs, you're now beholden to a third-party vendor, which can decide to charge you money on those APIs. They can rate limit those APIs. They can do whatever they want, which might not be viable for the solution that you're building. So, like in theory, if people play nicely, APIs are a great way to do this. They're strong contracts that have a known API, known parameter list and structure that you can call reliably and get information. The problem is big tech knows that that is the normal communication pattern, and so they are billing on these APIs. It's no longer becoming a billing of usage. It's a billing of the APIs, and then this sort of manufactured number that they decide, which is related to the tokens, right? Like, we don't know. We don't know if it actually requires this many tokens. It's just a number that it sends to us saying, this is how much work I did. What's the validation of that? And unfortunately, because we've been misled by some of these folks on the things that they're doing, there's a little bit of loss of trust to rely on those. Whereas I think it's far more reasonable to trust APIs from entities that, yeah, are known to be not for greed, but instead for the advancement of technology. So things like maybe the Linux Foundation. But the for-profit companies, we have to be really careful here because you can get married to their system, which is exactly what they want. They want vendor lock-in as much as possible. And then if they do that, they can do what Restream is trying to do with me, right? Starts out really cheap, and then you grow to this certain limit, and then suddenly you jump up in this massive tier of expense. Okay, so as far as the, look at this, I thought about this a little bit ahead of time, and I've got some of the links already. I think these are the main ones. So if you're new to the stream, those are some links for our Discord and the two main YouTube channels, which one of them is recording the stream live, and the other one is this new experimental channel that's, I'm trying to correct the algorithm. So you may want to check out both of those YouTube things. Subscribe if you are interested, and ignore if you're not. Okay. Now, I need to think about this for a second on how to re-guide it. Maybe what I'll do, just for kicks, is we'll just quickly build the system for IG. This, in theory, should be significantly easier. Whoops. All right. Hit synchronously. All right, we'll give it small little words of encouragement. Oh, yeah. Oh, Michael, so part of the reason why I'm keeping these other tabs up is so I'm doing this on purpose because I want to create clutter that it will have to navigate through in a real scenario. Because as this thing is running in real life, outside of sort of a controlled scenario, I'm going to be bringing up random windows, and we need to ensure that a certain hardness of the system. So we'll close these down if it struggles with this, but I've already, we did this offline, but I've already given it guidance on how to deal with the TikTok and the IG Chrome tabs and a format structure that it should be looking for when it's trying to find the right chat for each of those systems. So it's already been groomed to look for this. It has the infrastructure, I think, potentially already built. And we're going to find out in, I think, just a second if it actually is able to do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so right now this is Windows on my local machine. And I'm trying to generate the system in a very abstract way. So it will work with in sort of this generic fashion. So it'll work with Mac OS and Linux. I haven't tried those two OSs yet. So I have like an order of things that I want to do. After we get it working properly for Windows, I want to next get it working for Android because I want to be able to bring this up on my phone and see all of this stuff. Then after we do that, I'll probably port it to macOS. And because of the design, the way that I'm forcing the separation, it already has the right structure for these generic inputs where the specificity on how they do file manipulation and socket manipulation will be controllable pretty easily, in theory, for the different operating systems. That's at least the goal. We'll find out how much it's actually abstracted this properly once we move to one of these new OSs and we see the number of things that are broken. In my experience, there's certainly going to be a number of things that break, but it's just sort of a question of how many things and how catastrophic they are. So we've got Brem. Is this Brem? Are you training a model and this you build it? You can get cheap tokens using BitTensor, though. Okay, that's cool. Building global capacity core or something. You just push the bait code to a server called something like SQL. Not totally sure what you're saying. Yeah. So right now for the first, oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay, look, this is getting more and more curious. Yeah, so right now for the different channels, it has the core URL format for them in like its one of its JSON files that it uses as a starting point. And then from there, it does basically some sort of regular expression search that is partially stochastic because they keep changing the structure based on the different live stream parameters. And so it needs to be flexible to accommodate that so it's not static, because these static things are just being changed under the hood. Again, this is just our first version. Once we get the initial like wireframe working, then we'll do a deeper pass and try to start to harden some of this stuff. So it's sort of under the hood and it's not fully visible. And this is meant to be, at least as a first pass, pretty lightweight. And then as we start to build it out, we'll harden it significantly. It's this whole iterative refinement path. But the structure itself for this software system, GZC, is being built in a way that it should be pretty robust, as in it's easy to extend, it's easily adaptable, strongly cohesive components, strongly decoupled, all the good software engineering practices. All right. We need to see where it is in this process. Okay. All right. So it has a high-level design. This kind of makes sense. Okay, it's trying to do some bindings that I don't totally love, but it looks like it may be sufficient-ish. I'm going to give it some guidance over here. Okay, so I'm basically just giving it guidance now on working with the right Chrome tab specifically for mining. So I think it already picked that up. It worked. It's not 95 bytes though. That part's wrong. Okay, cool. So the first general structural pass of the IG system, it seems to think it kind of worked, but I don't think it's quite getting the actual info from that browser. Let's take a look at this. Okay. You need to be on your Action Live broadcast view, which I am. Oh, so it thinks it should be like slash live. All right, let's take a look. I think it should be this. I think so. No. The live directs to the GTT handle directly. Okay. Okay. We're going to test something here on my phone to see.
The best part about being alive.
Okay. What? No. Strange. What is this? No, that's what we want. Okay, live. Okay, we need to think about this for a second. It's decidedly making this, I think, more complex. This is probably because IG wants to block this. And I've had similar problems when I've tried to mine stuff directly from the social media sites. And then we find these multiple backdoors that it can then create as multiple paths forward in the event one of them fails. And so we can kind of rotate through them if we need to. Essentially, none of the social media sites want us to be able to do this. This is probably why Restream doesn't have direct integration with IG and TikTok. It's like requiring this somewhat specific uh, yeah. Yeah, T-Lock. This my machine is very much a it's a beast. Yeah. So Michael's saying for an automation task window, it's difficult to copy paste programmatically when a response window has focus. Yeah, absolutely. What we can potentially try to do is create a service and find a way to capture that information at like a lower level, in particular through automatic Windows log files that probably exist and is being generated right now. But I'm trying to avoid going too low level until I have to. Because then if we build a low level solution, which will almost certainly work, the problem is we'll have to rebuild that collab coded system for each of the OSs independently, which may be what we have to do. Could be. Okay. So it's having some troubles. It can identify the browser instance. For some reason, it's having difficulty getting the... Yeah, let's try this. We're going to try to tunnel underneath the actual visible UI now to see if we can target potentially the cookies or something below the visible tab instance, which we know exists, but we don't know exactly what's being stored in those things, at least not yet. What just happened here? Okay. Keep in mind too, IG is doing some very specific stuff with all the chats and things that are trying to limit your ability to manipulate its system. So for example, one of the things you guys may have noticed is when you drop links in IG, it essentially disables them. This is part of their cost maxing, is in order to make links active, it's aware that they're links and it proactively disables them so that you have to upgrade your subscription to, I think the most expensive one is like $250 a month, just to activate something like 6 URLs a month or something. It's pretty insane. So we know that IG is being designed in a way that's trying to fight us from being able to mine this. And so we're not only just trying to, this is more difficult than a normal scrub of a page. It's a scrub of a page that has built-in security mechanisms so you can't scrub it, essentially. Or you can't essentially do the kind of stuff that we're trying to do. It's significantly more locked down than YouTube, for example. Like YouTube, I can drop links and those links will become immediately active. I think I can do maybe the same for Kick and Twitch. I'm not sure about TikTok, but I know for sure IG actively blocks this. I think TikTok does as well. And this is even coming from the person that is doing the the authorship of that stream or that channel. And again, it's not because they don't have the capabilities to do this. They absolutely do. They're intentionally disabling it so they can make you. This is just Mark Zuckerberg at his finest on trying to charge you as much money as possible. And that's why you don't see any of the active URLs whenever I drop URLs in comments for VODs or anywhere else on IG. That's actually what's going on. You can actually see this yourself if you try to upgrade your IG account and go to like the extreme business one, and you'll see that like you can choose to have some number of URLs become active links. And the pricing is just insane. So, yeah, we're fighting it on a number of fronts here. It's getting pretty awesome. Hold on. What is this comment? Can you do some sort of direct screen capture? Yeah, this was actually one of the ideas that we were tossing around, is doing an actual screen capture and then using computer vision to then process this. We're keeping that in our back pocket in the event that any of these other things won't work. I'm almost positive that approach will work. The challenge, though, is then it's limited to just the number of screenshots that we can do from those captures. And right now, there's not enough communication on any of the channels to where I think that would become a problem. But it's like, yeah, a fallback. That's definitely on the list, though. Okay, hold on. Let's see. What it's saying here. So I'm asking it to try to read below the visible UI, get from the cookies, and it's saying basically it doesn't know exactly what's accessible. So we've got the cookies, SQLite path. If the local storage, yep. And it's basically saying the high level view that it has is none of those it thinks will work. Okay. But it has something. Chrome exposes a localhost JSON remote procedure call API when launched with remote debugging port 9222. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, this is pretty clever. If we launch Chrome with this debugging port active, then we're going to get a stream of more information on that port that we can read from, I think. Ooh, this might be it, guys. Oh, I'm liking this quite a bit. Because like I was saying, another way to do this is go directly at the socket layer. And this is what we would be doing with this port, is we would have this new port that's active that we would read from locally, and it would be streaming the information from Chrome directly to us, and then we can partition out just the information that we want from the chat. But we must launch Chrome with this flag. Oh, I'm loving this. Well, hold on a second. trying to give me a tip on a hidden URL information. This is getting pretty awesome. We're like, guys, now we're rabbit holing. We're getting like into, this is collab coding. And for those of you that aren't hyper technical, I apologize. I wish I could up level this, but they're kind of forcing us to go below the obvious approaches. So we're going to have to get like a little bit more technical. Hoo hoo hoo. Oh, there's some interesting stuff that we can start to do here. Claude is pointing me out to hidden things in Chrome that I didn't know existed that are being, they're hidden below the surface. Like stuff that is actually going on between the URL that you can actually see and the communication that's happening between the website and Chrome itself. Yeah. I need a few minutes to try to comprehend exactly what I'm seeing, but this is like some awesome lower level cloak and dagger type stuff. Maybe for folks that are experts in the web, this might be obvious to you, but for me, that's a bit of a noob. This is newish. And hey, Dino. Yeah, actually, forgot my keys. I'm pretty good, or I'm having pretty good success with the ability for the transcribers I have to take the audio from the recorded live streams and VODs and transcribe them almost perfectly. I'll have to look into exactly what I'm using that gets me this quality, but I was just doing this earlier today, and the transcription almost perfectly matches what I'm saying. I'll look at sharing this at some point, like the transcriber that we're using for the VOD clipping. Yeah, I can actually bring up some of the transcriptions in a second and show you that it's like on fire with its accuracy. This is what's allowing me to do such good clip editing, is the transcriptions perfectly match the video, so the clip editing that's happening locally is as good, if not better, than what Opus Clips is able to do. But okay, so I want to do this debug thing. This looks freaking awesome. I'm about ready to like nerd max here. I may have to shut all of the Chrome tabs down and restart the entire system with this persistent flag. But I'm doing some quick background first with Claude to try to understand. Because what I think I want to do is potentially make this a permanent thing that stays on for all instances of Chrome. And this is actually, what's so great about this at the socket layer is there'll be no UI interference. So the stuff that's happening on the screen right now with it flashing and doing all this is going to be lighted away if we go at the socket layer. The problem is, as I was mentioning before, is it's a little bit technically sophisticated. And so unless you understand computer architecture, this wouldn't be something maybe you would immediately know that you could do. this is the constant struggle that I'm dealing with to try to build a collab coding framework that everyone can use and understand while simultaneously allowing you to harness all the power that is in the engine part of the systems that run on top of it, the stuff that you can visibly see, and the separation between the mechanisms that make all that stuff visible, if that makes sense. All right, yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is a solution we want to use. All right. So what Chrome and I basically have just decided is we're going to use the CDP solution, which is the Chrome debugging port solution, and we're killing the other threads that we were starting to try to pull directly from the UI. Man, this is bright. And we're going to scrap that entirely since that is. Oh, wait, what's happening here? That high level approach of trying to grab directly from what's visible is, we could try to force feed that to work, but it's causing so much interruption. I'm pretty confident we could make it work, but this other solution is actually going to be cleaner. Here's what's awesome about collab coding that I think is like fundamentally important to understand. That's different than vibe coding. Oh, I want to, I think, shrink this slightly. So what we just did, like you were able, for those of you that have been watching this live stream, we've gone through this system in a relatively systematic way. We started at this high level and then we tried these various things and it didn't work. That's to be expected when we're trying to figure out how to jump through these various things. But what we're not doing is just handing the task off to the AI saying, just build the thing, right? And in the process of doing this, and this is why it's this collab thing, is I now know more than I did an hour ago. I didn't know about this remote debugging port that's built directly into Chrome. I just learned this. And this is, I think, one of the beauties of doing the collab coding is it's not just that you are building a system, it's that you are actually growing your knowledge for any of the systems that you're building. And so you're essentially accumulating more knowledge on how all this stuff works as you're going through the process. You kind of have to have a growth mindset, but I think most of us that are on GTT already have this. So this is sort of like a prerequisite. And if you're just vibe coding, then this is not part of the process, right? Because you're just saying, do the thing and I'll, ping me when you're done. This requires collaboration and discussion. Thus the name collab coding. Okay, I'm going to pop out this chat, which I think all of you on YouTube and stuff you probably were tracking, but now everybody can kind of see this. And feel free to chat amongst yourselves while I get this thing started. I'm super pumped. I got to be honest, one of the things I love the most is when the AIs actually teach me something that I didn't know before. This Chrome debugging port CDP thing is a gem. It the capabilities that I'm speculating we will get from access on this port is going to be notable. Yeah, absolutely, RJ. Is we can't ever, I think, trust that. Where did I put the IG window? Yeah, check this. Let's actually do a quick Google search on this so you guys can see. This is the Chrome debugging port CDP summary. Here we go. So this is what we're looking at now. Is it's this Chrome DevTools protocol. Sorry, I'm just learning, so I was axing what the actual acronym stands for. It's a low-level JSON remote procedure call-based API that enables external software to instrument, inspect, debug, and profile Chromium-based browsers programmatically. Freaking awesome. Super great. When you expose a Chrome remote debugging port, you open a WebSocket communication channel that gives you direct access to the browser's internal engine without using the standard user interface. Hell yeah. Like a million thousand %. This is exactly what we wanted. And what's great is that if this works the way that I speculate it may, this could be essentially operating system agnostic. So when we build this solution for Windows, in theory, because it's at the Chromium level, that it will potentially be fully portable to any system that will run Chromium systems. And I mean that like as the engine part of Chrome. And that would include potentially other browsers that are based off of Chromium. This is my speculation. Again, I'm just learning this right now with you guys. Let me. we're gonna have so much fun now. I'm gonna just drop this link so all of you guys can. Oh, sweet, awesome. Thanks, Vic. Yeah, guys, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, this is collab coding. Where did IG go? I think in my excitement of all this stuff, I might have Is that, no, that's TikTok. Oh, here's IG. Where is that window? Oh, it's down here. Okay. I have too many windows going on. I want to drop this over for the IGers to see. There you go, guys. So, did that actually drop? Yeah. So that URL will take you into this site, which seems dedicated to how to start to hack on these lower levels. And what's great about this is, again, this is speculation because I'm just learning about this with you guys. This is not going through the standard APIs that are going to charge you a whole bunch of money. This is specifically for development under the browser. And because of that, this is likely going to be enabled or enableable in all the different Chromium-based browsers and always available. And with this, we can get essentially a steady stream, in theory, of all the information that's being passed to the browser before it actually gets shown, and then we can decide through essentially pattern recognition and partitioning what parts of it we want to lift out and deploy inside of GCC or whatever app you're building, and what parts you just want to ignore. So the next step for this, once we enable this debugging system, is we're going to essentially create some socket connection that's going to start pulling from this port or this JSON stream or something, and then we're going to have to write some sort of parser that's going to segment out the pieces that are relevant for the chat specifically, and then all the rest of the stuff. It's probably going to be a very small portion of the overall data stream, but it will have a very specific signature to it. It must have. If it doesn't have a very specific signature, then IG wouldn't be able to send just the messages here that are relevant to the chat, right? So we know already, because of this API, it's going to have some reliable structure. We just don't yet know what the structure is going to be. So once Claude is done building the general infrastructure for the Chrome DevTools protocol, then we're going to start sending that stream of information to the GCC system, which will have another thread that's dedicated to pulling from this and then lifting out the relevant information. More likely than not, we're going to be able to start to see significantly more information than just things related to the chat. And we may find some of that stuff super useful. Awesome, Vic. So it sounds like you've done this before. Potentially quite a bit. Yeah, good call, Michael. Yeah, it is sort of the lazy man's way of doing this, and it was my hope that we'd be able to do this higher level just so there would be less technical overhead for a more general audience trying to do something similar. But, you know, if they want to force us to go level, I mean, bro, we can go all the way down to the hardware level, right? I mean, we can read directly from like the L1 D cache if we need to. Like we can call into the APIs directly into like the secure enclave. Like I'm down for whatever. Yeah, this is, I think, one of the big challenges is that it's like you're restricted in your ability to do verification based on how rich your knowledge is of the domain. And it's part of the reason why I wanted to stay a little bit away from this is the prerequisites for other people doing this low level of stuff is significantly higher than uh, just doing a simple copy paste. It's not that you know, that we didn't know this stuff existed. It's just we're trying to keep it simple. But yeah, it is what it is. The good news is once we have this infrastructure in place, we'll try to generalize this component so then other people that are trying to do similar things will just have the component. They won't need to know all the details. They'll just know that this component exists that we built from GTT, and here's how you use it. And here are the prerequisites. They don't need to know about all the stuff related to ports and sockets and all that stuff. Just like send it the pattern that you're looking for or give us insight into the type of thing that you're trying to mine, and then we'll try to handle the rest. Okay. All right, we have the CDP adapter built, and it's being launched now. And there's a few steps that it wants me to take. I just need to do these off screen just so nothing super secret pops up. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves as I sort this out. It's getting a little bit dark in here. We'll deal with the light situation after I get this running. Okay. Spawns this. All right. I think that it can run silently inside of Chromium, Michael, and so it will not have any residue at the visible UI browser level. I think. Okay, we've got the CDP is working. Now I've got to sign in through here. Guys, this is so exciting. part of what's so exciting, at least to me, is it's like a mystery on what exactly we're going to start to be able to see. It like we literally just unlocked a new area in our role playing game. Okay. No, I don't want that. Okay. Ooh, guys, this is getting pretty legit. I think I want to sign in. Okay. IG's already trying to uh, block me to make sure I'm not botting it. Secret, I am. Yeah, okay, let's save this. No, let's not do this. All right, so I have the tab now for IG with that, the developer tool stuff active now. And I'm back into IG's live stream. So we should now be actually getting the feed through this port. Now I'm directing Claude to see if it can start to read from the CDP port that we just opened. So it's working on that. Once we know for sure that it can start to read that, we're going to start mining. Okay, so it found the IG tab. Keep in mind, this is going to run under the hood. It's now attaching the monitor to that stream. And I think we might be waiting for a dump. I'm trying to sort of force trigger the dump from IG. Okay, it's restarting the script to try to integrate directly into GCC. Right now, we're just working on Windows. We've got the Hostinger sandbox set up with Ubuntu. That may actually be, man, we've got a bunch of different things going on. But yeah, right now we're testing this on Win 10. But just to be clear, RJ, in theory, this is a design agnostic solution as long as you're using Chrome or a Chromium browser. Okay, so it kind of did the right thing, but it forgot to include an additional flag that it needed, that Chrome was blocking this WebSocket that we needed in addition to the port being opened. Okay. We need to shut this down. I'm going to hard launch this. I think. Session. Okay. Just trying to get the right